Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and the third part of this experiment where we've reversed all of the leagues in Europe and destroyed the finances of the bigger teams. We have had two parts already, so do make sure you check those out if you've missed them. And make sure to drop a like on the video if you're enjoying this one, and also to subscribe to the channel for Football Manager experiments every couple of days. You could also let me know any ideas that you would like to see down in the comments. But today we are going to go 10 more years into the future. You can see at the moment the Premier League title is being held by Charlton. If we look at the past winners here, you can see York have won it twice, Blackburn have come close twice but did win it 3 years ago, and Whitehawk were the first team to win it. But more importantly, if we drop down to the Championship, you can see Manchester United are kicking about, looking ready to get to the top of the league. And the picture across Europe is quite interesting. A lot of the leagues, like the Greek Super League, Austrian League, Swiss League, doing extremely well because they're not loaded in the game, which means that their teams have a higher reputation and are doing better in the Champions League, which is getting an even higher reputation for those teams, which is why they're doing well. But we are going to go forward 10 years, which I think will be far enough ahead for us to get a better picture of how the teams have managed to rebuild and what the established order is across the European leagues and in the major competitions. And we'll also have a look at the international competitions like the World Cup and other ones like that. So do, like I said, drop a like on this video if you're enjoying this series. But let's go ahead 10 years into the future. Well, we are now 10 years into the future. The year is 2032. And if we have a look at the European competition rankings, you can see despite that massive overhaul that people thought possibly went a bit too far, the big leagues are the Bundesliga, Premier League, La Liga, Liga, Serie A, and then you have the Greek Super League and Austrian Premier Division. None of these have moved around recently, which means they're all in the same place. You can see Scotland's Ladbrokes Premiership in 11th place now. There are a few other leagues down here. The Eredivisie has really dropped down quite a bit. And the Belgian Pro League now below the Azeri and Slovak leagues. The Portuguese League really far down in 22nd place. They have absolutely suffered from this. And even the Championship now well down in 31st. So quite a bit of change there, to be honest, in the big leagues, or outside of the top 5 leagues. Things have turned around an awful lot in Europe. Now, if we start off with possibly the Eredivisie, which is 17th at the minute, you can see we don't have the league loaded, but the big team at the moment is NEC. If we have a look at the Portuguese Premier League, then you can see again none of the big teams have managed to come back and win that competition. And all the way down, if we can find the Belgian Pro League, then we can see that the big winners here at the moment are a Bruges team, but not Club Bruges. It is Cercle Bruges, beating out the likes of Westerlo and Roeselare. So those leagues now being dominated by completely new teams, but because those teams don't have the ability to compete in the Champions League or Europa League, it means that the entire league is suffering with its reputation, which affects the club's reputation, and it drops down the rankings, while some of the greyed out leagues or unloaded leagues have a higher reputation which lasts for longer, and their teams continue to do well in Europe because that reputation isn't dependent, well, that success isn't dependent on the players they sign, because they'll all be greyed out. So that's the reason why things like that are happening at the minute. But let's jump into Serie A to begin with and see how the big teams have managed to do here, if any of them have come back, or if we're still looking at the same teams winning in Serie A. So when we left off last time, you could see Benevento were the league winners. You had teams like Parma in here as well, but not too many of the former big clubs up there. The following season, it was Frosinone who won it ahead of Benevento, who then came back to take it the following season. Foggia getting it the following year, then Benevento again and again. I'm not seeing any of the big teams come back up. You've got the likes of Empoli in there, Parma's still there as well, but it's the same teams at the top of the league. They have become the new Italian giants, and there is just absolutely nobody else in there. Palermo have managed to get into the top league, but none of the Juventus, Inter Milan, any of those teams are anywhere near the top division. And if we drop down into Serie B, and just have a look if any of them are here, it doesn't look like any of them have managed to get out of non-league and back into the top division, which is really, really disappointing that they failed to do that. at any point. I don't understand quite why that's happened. I know that we destroyed the club a little bit, but that seems a little bit too far to me, because they were still getting some money, they still had the stadium, they still had the fan support, and really they should have bounced back, the likes of Juventus. But as it is, the league leaders at the moment are the likes of Benevento and Empoli, and I'm sure we will see them doing well in the Champions League as well. Taking a look at Liga next, and when we left off, AS Cannes had won the league with 37 wins and 1 draw with 0 defeats. We didn't even notice that last time, or certainly I didn't notice it, but they are absolutely the giants of French football, and they managed to win the league at a canter, unbeaten. That is 2 years unbeaten now. They only lost 1 game the year before that, so they've only lost 1 league game across 3 seasons. They did then lose 2 the following year, but still absolutely dominating in the league. Another unbeaten season there, losing 1 game, 2 games, a couple of games, but still hitting nearly 100 points before finally, despite only losing 2 games again, Reims have managed to take the title there, 2 points clear of Cannes, and finally break their grip, but instead can't go back the following season and do take the title again before FCSM, I think that's a show, managed to win the title, and then that takes us to the most recent one. So Cannes, definitely the new PSG. Look at this streak of titles, so many of them unbeaten, invincible titles as well. Reims was so unlucky to finish second so often, but they did manage to get a title of their own, and FCSM managed to come out of absolutely nowhere to win this title and break Cannes' dominance. So they've done very well there. But again, if we drop down to Ligue 2, you can see that there are no big teams in there, no Monaco, no PSG. They are nowhere to be seen. And if we just do a quick search for the likes of AS Monaco, then we can see they're in National 2A, which is making it difficult for them to really bounce back up. They're a bit too far away. They keep getting relegated or finishing bottom of this league, which is why they're really struggling with their reputation, and they can't bounce back despite their rich finances. Although if they had that much money, they would realistically be bouncing back. But that's just not how the game works, and it's not how it deals with these problems. Now, if we have a look at La Liga next, and maybe go through this a little bit quicker, then you can see Cadiz were the big team when we left off. Real Madrid were one of the few big teams still knocking around. In the following season, they did manage to get into the Champions League once more, finishing 3rd. Missed out the following season as Cadiz kept on cleaning up. Girona getting a title as well. Cadiz came back, Real Madrid in 2nd place, runners-up, and then finally Real Madrid become the first established big team to come back and take a title. They have won La Liga for the first time in about a decade. They lost out the following season as Cadiz took back control, but Real Madrid still up and about there. They haven't been able to win another title since. Cadiz have got a stronghold on that league now, but Real Madrid knocking on the door and not far away from more La Liga success. It'll be interesting to see how they've done in the Champions League as well. Now, the 2nd ranked league in the world is the Premier League, so if we have a quick look through this, Charlton were the dominant team before, but Blackburn managed to get their 3rd Premier League title the following season and managed to retain it the year after as well. You can see United have popped into the top division now, still some way to go before they're challenging at the top. York have managed to win another title and then retained it the following season as United hit the European places, but then dropped down again the following year as Charlton win 2 titles in a row. It's Blackburn, York and Charlton all the way at the moment. United, a mid-table Premier League team, are not able to do any better than that at any point. They're still down in mid-table as Charlton win another title. If we look at the Championship, then you can see in the league table here, Man City finishing in the playoffs but not able to get promoted. And there aren't really any other major teams in here. Arsenal getting relegated again. They have taken so long to climb back up to the top tier that they just have lost that steam, they've lost that income, and a lot of their sponsorship deals will have run out, which means they will have all kinds of financial problems. You can see even down in League 1 there aren't that many Premier League teams sitting in and around this division. They are still all the way down in the likes of the Vanarama National League. And if we take a look at this here, you can see a few more like Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Liverpool still down in non-league football and having 10 points deducted from them going into administration. So football really has been completely turned on its head in Europe, and it's allowed teams like Charlton, Blackburn and York to get a total stronghold on this league. Whitehawk, the first Premier League winners, are now sitting in 7th place in the league. They have established themselves, but they've not been able to take back the title. So English football, this is the first time I've done an experiment like this and seen a genuine sustained change in the overall structure of the football pyramid, and United, the only Premier League team that managed to make it back to the Premier League. And we're now a good 15 years into the future. It's taken them that long, and they've had to settle for year after year of mid-table as a result. And it's quite nice to see United not winning anything, because I was worried they were going to do it when they first popped up. Now, if we take a look at the Bundesliga, it's nice to see that Dortmund are back in there, because they weren't before. Darmstadt were winning the league. Took it the following season as well. Bayern Munich down in mid-table. They did start to climb up. You can see Dortmund making their first appearance there, but getting relegated straight away. Doing a yo-yo at the minute. They did manage to stay up there. Nuremberg getting an awful lot of titles here. And there you go. Bayern Munich, not winning the title. It's Nuremberg and Darmstadt taking home the title year after year. Bayern Munich and Dortmund have not been able to reclaim their former glory here, and this is a top-ranked league in Europe as well. So it is difficult for them to climb back when they're facing the best teams in Europe in their league, the likes of Nuremberg and Darmstadt, who must have won quite a few Champions Leagues. So let's jump over to the European competitions and see who's been doing best. Now, when we left off last time, Blackburn had managed to win the Europa League title, not the Champions League title. The following season, it was Benevento, the Italian team, who took it ahead of Berlin Kopnik, damn something or other. Portsmouth actually managed to make it to the Europa League semi-final, but were knocked out by Benevento. The following season, Empoli beat Real Madrid, who were making their European comeback there. Ingolstadt, though, the eventual winners. Portsmouth losing at the semi-final stage again. Real Madrid knocked out in the quarterfinals this time as Kaiserslautern went all the way. German teams doing well here. Olympiacos managed to win the following season, beating out the likes of Empoli, Basel and Sporting Gijon. But it's nice to see so much variation in this. You can see Bayern Munich there, beaten by Peterborough in the Europa League semi-final, but unfortunately it was the Berlin Kopnik team who managed to take it. Portsmouth again failing to make the final of the Europa League. But Peterborough the following season did come through and beat PAOK, who I've learnt to say is PAOK, in the final on penalties. Portsmouth again out at the semi-final stage. Blackburn managed to win it once more the following year before York beat Peterborough to the title the year after that. The English team's doing very well in Europe. Portsmouth finally make it to the Europa League final, but lose to Karlsruhe of Germany after beating Entella. I'm not actually sure where Entella are from. And then Cannes, some reason down in the Europa League, beat Portsmouth to the title once more, and that takes us up to the most recent history. But it's quite an interesting little roll call here. All these big clubs that have been winning it over the last 15-20 years, completely missing out now. We've got Greek teams, Israeli teams, Austrian teams, a few English teams coming back into it, and there is that returning dominance of the German, French and English teams starting to win this for the last 6 years, since Olympiacos won it actually. So that dominance is coming back to the major leagues once more now that they're back at the top of the competition rankings. So disappointing that maybe the other leagues haven't managed to endure as long as the big ones. So when we left off before in the Champions League, it was won by Cannes at the final season we left off. The next year, they retained the Champions League, beating Salzburg, another of the previous winners. The following season, all German finalists, Nuremberg won the Champions League. Cadiz took it on penalties from Cannes the following season. Good to see York in the semi-finals as well. And Nuremberg took it on penalties over Salzburg as well. York, though, finally win the Champions League there on penalties. Who'd have thought York could be winning the Champions League at any point? But there they are, on penalties against Darmstadt, and lost in the final to a German team the following year, Nuremberg winning it. But Salzburg managed to come back. They are the last of those minor leagues managing to hang on and compete in the Champions League. Cannes beat Blackburn the following year, and then Salzburg managed to take it again. Darmstadt with another one for Germany. But Salzburg, the absolute unsung heroes of this save, in a league that is not even loaded, they are doing exceptionally well and managing to keep fighting right at the top. They are rich in finance as a result, and if we look through their transfer history and just see they're not actually spending that much money, which is further proof that it isn't about the money, it's about their greyed out perfect reputation. And you can see they do have quite a few good players in their team. I'm not sure where they're picking these up. They must be getting them on the cheap. But even then, there aren't that many great players in here. So it's interesting that they are winning so many Champions League titles with such a poor team. But it's doing wonders for the Austrian league, that managing to keep up there. So European football absolutely turned on its head. There's no doubt about that. But we're starting to see the rebalance of the big leagues coming back up to dominate European football, and the smaller leagues dropping out, except for Red Bull Salzburg, who are managing to stay up there and compete on the front of the Champions League. So if we take a quick look now at the World Cup, which is possibly the last thing we really need to have a look at, you can see there's not... Well, actually, there has been a bit of variation here. Germany and France have won the last two, but Belgium and Colombia won the 2 World Cups before that, which is not something that I expected. You can see England losing in the final to Belgium there, but Belgium losing the World Cup before that to Colombia, and then Germany lost to France and came back to win it the year after. A little bit of repetitive history there. Maybe Mexico are going to take it the following World Cup. But if we have a look just at the stages for these World Cups, going back to 2018, maybe get to the quarter-finals. Put that in a tree format. There we go. We can see not many surprises in there. A lot of big teams in there, except for Colombia winning it. Denmark were knocked out. Uzbekistan made it to the quarterfinals, beat Paraguay on penalties, but lost to Belgium, the eventual winners. Imagine Uzbekistan making the semi-final of the World Cup. They wouldn't even qualify, let alone make the semi-final. The following year, no surprises in there at all. Ghana did make the semi-finals, which is nice to see, but that takes us up to the most recent World Cup. And I think also the end of this experiment, potentially. If you would like to see another part to this experiment, do drop a like on the video. If we get to maybe 250 likes, I'll think about doing another one, maybe 10, 20 years in the future. Let me know down in the comments how far forward you would like to see it go. Make sure to let me know if you've got an idea for the next experiment I should do on the channel as well, and do hit that subscribe button for more Football Manager experiments, especially with the new game certainly on everybody's mind once this World Cup is over. So make sure to drop a like on Twitter. I've got a Discord chat where you can talk to other Football Manager players if you'd like to. All of that good stuff down below. But until next time, see ya.